So every week on OTB AM we bring in the Gillette performance rankings. We're looking for your suggestions. Who should fit into the green? Who's had a good weekend? Who's been so bad that they need to be in the red? And who had a meh week and therefore they're kind of stuck on amber? Let us know what you think and you could win a Gillette starter pack.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
One place to start. If you're new to the performance rankings, by the way, we do the bad, the good, the grand. We're going to start with the bad as ever, into the red. Leinster in red this morning, Ger. Was this a similar viewing experience for you as the Saracens games were? Like that moment of hope with the furlong try, was that a step forward into the kind of area of hope?
Yeah, it makes it worse. It makes it worse. Yeah, definitely makes it worse. It's like, but even though it makes no sense, you abandon. There are certain times when you just become a fan and you abandon all critical faculties. You still think, with when there's only one score in it, that if they could just somehow arrest the pattern of the last 45 minutes from out of nowhere, if someone could just do something, please. I mean, it will go down as one of those miracle things where, I think they held them up at one point. I don't know if everybody remembers, but there's, it's basically Wesley Fofana's, whatever this part of your arm is, that stops the ball from getting down after a brilliant Gordon Darcy tackle in Claremont in the semi-final, and that one win that they've had that Neil Tracy was talking about, one win in 5 or one win in 6 semi-finals in France. You were thinking maybe somebody could do that, just somebody could be the Gordon Darcy today to save, but no one could do, because it was an irresistible force from La Rochelle at the weekend. They were sensational. La Rochelle were really, really, really good, and that's the worst part about it, is that I don't think there was much Leinster could do, so therefore it's very chastening.
Yeah, and I'm almost kind of wondering if putting Leinster in the red is actually the story here. I know we're going to have La Rochelle and O'Gara in the green, but is that the bigger story here than Leinster coming up short? Because obviously the Leinster angle is what we're going to focus on.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we do need to start thinking about signing giants. I think Keith Wood made a very good point. We need to stop being suckered into doing what the rest of the world are doing and define our own style based on our own body shapes, and the fact that we aren't going to have players of the size and heft that the Pacific Islanders have or that the South Africans have, and so therefore our game needs to be a bit different. And I don't know what that's going to be, because when England play with their massive big beasts, and when South Africa play with their massive big beasts, what are we going to do? And
we're going to have bigger beasts in the Pro 16 over the course of the next little while. So does that then mean that we've kind of lost the initiative in terms of taking...
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, absolutely it does. You look at all the big defeats that we've suffered all the way back over the last while, maybe with the exception of Japan, where, they weren't that much bigger than us. They were just faster.
And Argentina.
And which Argentina defeat now?
The 2015.
Well, we had no team out that day. We'd 1/3 of our team, first choice team, out. So I think that was just really unlucky in terms of the injuries. That we had no strength in depth.
Yeah, I just remember the talk around it afterwards was more about offloading and less about power.
Yeah, look, it's true. They passed the ball better than us. So we need to be the best passing team in the world. We need to be the best at the skills, but that's not going to happen because the All Blacks are always going to be ahead of us in that. So what is it that we have? The body shape that we have is we can have a load of number 7s. If it was just a team of 15 7s playing World Rugby or 6s, we'd be like, yeah, we can do this. We're absolutely amazing at it. But unfortunately, the fatties up front, as Toland refers to them, other countries have bigger lads than we do.
It is not a case that it's a combination of both that has what's brought Ireland to their good moments. That win against the All Blacks, the most recent win against the All Blacks, that's down to Devon Toner picking up Brodie Retallick as much as it is down to Jacob Stockdale chipping over the head of a New Zealand winger and touching down. It was a combination of both of those things. You can't really put your finger on what exactly that was, and it was a hybrid game.
Yeah. Like, the Stockdale moment is really important in that, though, right? Like, that's an extremely high level execution of a very difficult skill that leads to a match-winning score. I don't know. It's like rugby is such a weird game where if those two teams played again next week and the referee decided that their scrummaging was illegal and every time there was a scrum, Leinster got a penalty, the game completely changes. And I'm not saying that will happen. You know, not to suggest that La Rochelle weren't the better team and didn't deserve their victory. But like, so Ireland beat England in the most recent game in the Six Nations. But that's the same Ireland team that got absolutely obliterated by them the last 3 times we played them, including the pre-World Cup game, on the basis of their power. So, like, I don't know. You're obviously in the immediate aftermath of the defeat, particularly because it looks fairly similar to the 2 defeats to Saracens in the last 3 Champions Cups that we've been out now, trying to reach for some overarching, this is the narrative. Certainly the bigger teams against the Irish teams at both national and international level are having a lot of joy against us. So what do we do about that?
Yeah, like I guess the point here is that how much do you make this a big conversation about it? It could just be one really good Irish team being beaten by a better team that happens to be French and they're away from home, and those things happen in Europe. It's just interesting that over the course of the last little while, the overarching conversation has been either that Ireland need to have silkier players who can offload the ball more, or else it's Ireland need more power. Maybe both of those things can be true.
Well, can we have some offloading from big lads?
Yeah, well,
that would be great.
Would be the happy medium big lads who are absolutely jacked, as they say, which is probably the only way that Ireland are going to win a World Cup. Amazing how every rugby conversation comes back to Ireland winning the World Cup.
Well, do you feel any closer to Ireland winning a World Cup after what you saw at the weekend?
I hadn't thought about it one bit, but you'd have to say, it doesn't make a difference really. Like as Keith Wood says, when it comes to some of these French teams, these are international players who've hung up their boots.
I know, but it does make a difference. It feels like we're, you know, until our club teams can reach a level where they're able to live with this, how can our national team live with it?
Well, like, I mean, they won the Champions Cup in 2018. Obviously, that was as part of Ireland's greatest ever year in rugby, maybe. And the following year, it all fell to pieces. But you would have thought that if the club game was that aligned to it, then there would have been more of a positive hangover from 2018 into 19, because that was all part of it too. I don't know. I'm not. I certainly wasn't thinking Ireland too much at the weekend. I think that we've seen a little bit of a disconnect between Leinster and the rest anyway in Ireland, that they're clearly ahead of the pack.
What was the Munster view on Leinster being beaten?
I mean, it's
quietly thrilled.
No,
delighted,
not at all. Actually,
absolutely.
I mean, maybe this is controversial, but I certainly would have found a bit of joy from Leinster being successful. Say, for example, in 2018, I would because of the fact that if you're going to be beaten regularly by somebody in your domestic league,
you want them to be the best.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the way I look at it, is that you want to be beaten by the best if you're going to be beaten at all.
Is that what you've done with Kerry being beaten by Dublin all these years recently? It's been like, sure, look, at least they're the greatest team of all time. That's your defence mechanism.
Different. That's very different. Very, very different. I don't know. And also as well, I mean, there's no scenario where you're shouting for Dublin players unless you're like mad about the international rules, which doesn't really happen anymore. But there is a scenario where, as a Munster fan, you're shouting for the Leinster players in Ireland. So don't tell me that doesn't make a difference. Like, I mean, everybody's human, and like, I mean, you can't root for Robbie Henshaw in Ireland and then say, call them all the names under the sun in a Leinster jersey. Well, maybe if you're in Thomond Park and it's full, you can.
I think it has happened. Is that not a rite of passage for fans of certain Irish rugby teams? Well, one last point. One of my Leinster supporting buddies was very exercised by the fact that the Examiner put the 3 lads from La Rochelle celebrating on their front page. I was like, well, that's exactly what you would do, wouldn't it? I mean, I think a lot of Munster fans were delighted for Ronan O'Gara, and
there is that.
You know, I think that, like, and it's totally fair enough. You got to stoke that rivalry. That rivalry is important.
I think that the weekend was different to the previous iterations of watching Leinster play. I think every Munster fan wanted to see La Rochelle win because it was Ronan O'Gara. But I don't think, in general, the idea of Leinster winning is that a disgusting thought for Munster fans. If Munster are getting beaten by Leinster, get beaten by the best, I'm sure everybody will disagree with that, but that's just what I think. Next up in the red this morning is Camogie in general, the Camogie Association. So over the weekend, we'd seen plans for a national league, then the club, then the championship format rolled out by the Camogie Association. This did not go down well whatsoever because people naturally want a split season. When it comes to the dual players as well, they would have been totally screwed over in this format. 84% of Camogie players polled by the GPA then said they will boycott the National League if the Camogie Association continue with their plan for this particular calendar. Now, the association has, in fairness, decided to use the next 7 days to poll its clubs and members to find out further what the optimum fixtures calendar would look like. I think it's pretty clear at this point the optimum fixtures calendar does not look like the one that they published on Friday, and that's probably why they're in the red. To spectacularly fail to read the room, and it's obviously been an association that's been under criticism quite a bit over the last little while. It's just another bit like another strange story that's come out. It just doesn't make any sense that they would want to put the club sandwich in the middle of the National League and the Championship. It's not fair on the club player, it's not fair on the county player, regardless of if you're playing one code or if you're playing both. So the Camogie in the red. The Grand then, orange. Sky Sports is what we put into the orange here. Mixed reaction to their coverage on Sunday. I had one ear on it as the Leinster game was unfolding, and it was interesting to see the sort of pitch versus the in-stadium studio dynamic that was going on. That you had Carragher and Neville very much pro the protest, and you had Souness very much throwing caution to everybody about the protest. He almost got decapitated by a can, was it? Or was it a bottle? I can't
He said a beer can, yeah.
Beer can. And then you had Dave Jones playing devil's advocate quite a bit. And Roy Keane and Micah Richards, everybody's favourite double act, largely ineffective. I get the sense. I didn't see all of the coverage, but that's certainly the sense I got from it. That certainly Souness, Neville and Carragher had more of an impact on the viewer than Keane and Richards. And like maybe you could say that this is great to have a whole variety of opinions being represented on the broadcast, but at the same time you can see why people are pretty annoyed to see somebody with the experience of Graham Souness and somebody who should be so in touch with supporters questioning immediately, or that his first reflex was to question the behaviour of the protesters.
I think in those unfolding scenarios it's always difficult to make sure you're pitching things in the right way, because you don't know if it's going to go very badly or if it's actually grand. And as the information comes through in piecemeal fashion, you don't want to be out there, like say 5 or 6 police officers had been really seriously injured and had life-changing injuries, then the mood changes pretty quickly. So when that didn't happen, you know, there, but for the grace of the broadcasting gods go, all of us who are ever doing anything live, you're like, this is grand, this is no big deal. And then it's like 15 people have just been, you're like, oh, Jesus, that's a disaster. Well, actually, there was one point, I was listening to you mostly on Sunday, when I flicked on, and Keane was like, look, we were never under any illusion that this was a business when we were here playing. We were never under any illusion. However, everybody understood that the football was the single most important thing. Everything came secondary to the football. Now, the football is 3rd or 4th after the sponsorship and the partners and everybody else. And I was like, this is a pretty good point. And then Neville picked that up and went, yeah, that is the problem, that they, after David Gill went, they didn't put somebody in charge who would have the football first. They put the guy who brokered the deal with the Glazers and who knew the Glazers, and so therefore had the Glazers as the first thing, and then football 3rd or 4th to try and service the debt and make the Glazers money. And that is the problem with Manchester United, and that's why it's a local issue to Manchester United. I thought their coverage was decent, but not as good as yours.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we were talking about this actually earlier on, like the idea of how badly the Glazers have screwed this up. Like I think really the Super League has made us all very aware of how idiotic some people who run football can be, that they have the capacity to do very stupid things. Like, and the stupid level of inaction from the Glazers here is really shining through, especially when I read David Conn this morning in The Guardian, and like we put that to Sam Lee earlier on, how the disgruntled fans can look across the city and look at what the UAE have done with Manchester City, and the way that they've invested in the academy, they've invested in the community, and they've invested in the happiness of the fans and the satisfaction of the fans. It's almost as if they've looked at what the Glazers have done and said, let's do the opposite of that. Look at Old Trafford falling into a state of disrepair. Look at the way in which they spent money and the way they've completely disregarded fans. Let's do the opposite of that, because it's not going to cost that much money, first of all, to tick all these boxes. And second of all, our power is going to be a hell of a lot stronger, because you won't have scenes like we've seen in Manchester United for the last 10 years.
Yeah, no chance of contagion spreading across Manchester, because Manchester City have bought the loyalty of their fans. And that's what they've done. They've put their money where their mouth is, and they've bought the loyalty of their fans. So in the long run, we'll see. I mean, maybe the Glazers can get away with not doing that, and maybe they'll sell this now and cash in and take a couple of billion off the table, or maybe they wait 40 years and the grandkids sell it and it is worth 10 billion and they take 10 billion off the table. So let's see. Number 2, Irish Athletics.
Yeah, this was
green.
In green, yeah, absolutely. Saturday night, an unbelievable performance from the dream team of 400-metre runners. So the team on Saturday night was Phil Healy, Charlene Maudsley, Chris O'Donnell and Tom Barr, who obviously didn't run on Sunday. This is the who's who of 400-metre runners, and they subsequently smashed the Irish national record for mixed relay and also qualified the team for the Tokyo Olympics. They finished 7th then on Sunday, but Tom Barr didn't run on Sunday. Who knows what they would have done with regards to that. No medals in the situation. It wasn't the championships, but at the competition to still have maybe a podium finish would have been remarkable on Sunday on top of that, and their time would have been good enough from the previous day. You also had the 4x200-metre team of Aoife Lynch, Kate Doherty, Sarah Quinn and Sophie Becker. They also ran a new national record to finish just over a second behind Poland and comfortably ahead of Ecuador in third in their run over the course of the weekend. So this is just another remarkable moment for Irish sprinting, which at underage level and at senior level, it seems now, over the past couple of years, is just starting to hit new heights consistently. And it's the volume of runners as well that seem to be able to compete at an international level.
So Shane McCormick has just tweeted.
Yeah, Shane McCormick, obviously Phil Healy's coach. Yeah. If this weekend taught us anything, it's that we have a huge opportunity going forward to build on a proud history of producing world-class 400-metre runners. Coaches, take note. Take your fast, short sprinters and stretch them out. Take your 800-metre runners and dabble down. Relays are our best bet at getting athletes to major championships en masse, but we need to build on the energy of this weekend. This should be the start of a revolution in Irish sprinting. It doesn't need to be mutually exclusive to other sprint events, he says. It should be complementary. Was a 60-100 runner until we decided to try something different in 2015. She ran 57s in her first 400 metres. He's talking about Phil Healy here. In the last 8 weeks, she's come 4th in Euro indoors and was part of a relay team to qualify for the Olympics. Commit, give it time, work with other coaches, make it happen. And it is extraordinary to see not how easily it's happened, but how capable Phil Healy has gone from being the person that we all know as the woman who runs 100 and 200 metres to somebody who is now one of the best around when it comes to at least relay level at 400 metres, coming 4th in the Europeans, as we mentioned there a little while ago. It's well within the reach to actually make that step up, and it's interesting that he's suggesting as well that 800 metres could also take the step down.
Make Ireland fast again, that's what I'm hearing here. Some quick entries for our competition today. Carrie says 16-year-old Wexford youth star Ellen Malloy needs to be there after her wonder goal at the weekend. Rocky Nolan says Katie Taylor. What a weekend from Katie Taylor. Again, you always get value for money with Katie Taylor because she is willing to stand in there and just trade punches, and I mean, it feels like it's dangerous, but then she always emerges on the right side. And those last few rounds were absolutely sensational from her. When she just needed to dig it out, she did. John says Gareth Bale proved he's not finished yet, still deadly in front of goal. This is like very typical Gareth Bale, sucking us all in just when we thought we were out. And Adam says Raj. Our competition winner is Harry Byrne, who is not that Harry Byrne. He's won a Gillette starter pack this Monday morning on OTB AM. Harry went for red, Glazers, Leinster orange, Man United supporters green, Raj and Katie Taylor to make the performance rankings. Well done, Harry, you win. Who is your last one in green?
Well, you got Ronan O'Gara in green, but it could have been a whole host of other people. We just had to stick him in there. I mean, this is going to be a great moment for Munster people to have a Munster man in green and Leinster in red this morning on the performance ranking. So we just had to go ahead and do it. But it could have been a whole range of people. Katie Taylor, that was just unbelievable on Saturday night. She's appointment viewing, no matter who she's fighting at this point. The Natasha Jonas rematch is surely going to be something that happens, which means that Ireland can unite in all of their annoyance at watching a British fighter on Sky Sports taking on an Irish fighter.
OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. That is it for this week's performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.